This is the tale of a man straddling the boundary of genius and madness, embarked on a mysterious path driven by an unquenchable curiosity for the macabre, leading him to cemeteries, dolls, and an eerie obsession that blurs the boundaries between the living and the departed. Anatoly Moskvin was born on September 1, 1966, in the city of Gorky in Soviet Russia, now known as Nizhny Novgorod. As a young boy, Moskvin started exploring cemeteries with his friends, particularly the Krasnaya Etna Cemetery in the Leninsky district of the city. After completing his studies at the Philological Faculty of Moscow State University, Moskvin gained recognition in academic circles. His primary areas of scholarly interest included Celtic history and folklore, as well as languages and linguistics. Moskvin held a profound fascination with cemeteries, burial customs, death, and the occult. He amassed a personal library comprising over 60,000 books and documents, along with a substantial collection of dolls. Colleagues in academia described Moskvin as a combination of brilliance and eccentricity. In adulthood, Moskvin led a solitary life, opting to live with his parents, and abstaining from marriage or romantic involvement. He refrained from consuming alcohol and tobacco, and it was believed that he had never been intimate with another person. Previously a lecturer in Celtic studies at Nizhny Novgorod Linguistic University, Moskvin had a prior affiliation with the Institute of Foreign Languages. Proficient in 13 languages, he was a philologist, linguist, and polyglot, with a substantial body of work, comprising books, research papers, and translations that held esteem within academic circles. Additionally, he occasionally ventured into journalism, regularly contributing to local newspapers and publications. Self-identifying as a necropolist, he was regarded as an authority on the cemeteries of Nizhny Novgorod Oblast. In 2005, Oleg Ryabov, a fellow academic and publisher, enlisted Moskvin's expertise to compile comprehensive lists of the deceased in over 700 cemeteries, spanning 40 regions of Nizhny Novgorod Oblast. Moskvin asserted that over the subsequent 2 years, he meticulously surveyed 752 cemeteries throughout the region, covering distances of up to 30 kilometers or 18.6 miles daily. During these extensive journeys, he resorted to drinking from puddles, seeking shelter in haystacks and abandoned farms, and even bedding down in the cemeteries themselves, at times going to the extent of spending a night in a coffin, slated for a funeral. Despite occasional encounters with law enforcement who suspected him of vandalism and theft, Moskvin was never apprehended or detained, as he promptly furnished his academic credentials and explained his purpose. Regrettably, the resultant work remains unpublished, though it has been hailed as exceptional and invaluable by Alexei Yesin, the editor of Necrologies, a weekly publication to which Moskvin was a frequent contributor. Following his arrest, Yesin expressed his belief in a misunderstanding and Moskvin's eventual exoneration. Later, Yesin informed the Associated Press that Moskvin was a solitary individual with particular quirks, showing no signs of participating in any peculiar behaviors. Subsequent to exhuming the bodies, Moskvin embarked on a study of mummification theories and methods, in an attempt to preserve them. He desiccated the corpses using a mixture of salt and baking soda, then carefully stored them in protected arid locations, both within and around cemeteries. Once the bodies were dried, Moskvin transported them to his residence, employing various techniques to fashion dolls with the intention of providing the children with functional bodies, when he ultimately discovered a way to revive them. He believed that their physical remains, having decayed and lost their original form, would render them uncomfortable or unhappy. Faced with the inevitable withering and shrinking of the bodies during the drying process, he would wrap the limbs in strips of fabric, and fill the body cavities with cloth and padding for fullness. At times, he added wax masks adorned with nail polish over the faces, before adorning them in vividly colored children's attire and wigs. These meticulous details gave the bodies the appearance of oversized handmade dolls, effectively concealing their true nature, however it remained uncertain whether each doll contained an intact set of human remains. Moskvin was cognizant that he was engaging in criminal activity, yet he believed the deceased children were somehow beckoning him to rescue them. This conviction superseded any regard for the law in his eyes. He often lamented his inability to have children, and once attempted to adopt a young girl contrary to his parents' wishes, however his application was rejected due to his limited income. He vehemently denied any sexual attraction to the dolls, instead regarding them as his own offspring. He communicated with them, sang to them, watched cartoons together, and even organized birthday celebrations and holiday festivities for their perceived benefit. Between 2006 and 2010, Moskvin undertook the role of a freelance correspondent for the Nizhny Novgorod Worker newspaper, contributing articles twice each month. Notably during 2008, he authored an extensive series of articles, chronicling the history of Nizhny Novgorod cemeteries, which were featured in the publication. On November 2, 2011, Moskvin was apprehended by police who were investigating a series of grave desecrations in cemeteries around Nizhny Novgorod. The Center for Combating Extremism, a law enforcement division, uncovered 26 bodies in Moskvin's residence and garage. Video footage released by the police depicted the bodies arranged on shelves and sofas within small rooms, filled with books, papers, and miscellaneous items. While only 26 bodies were found in his home, Moskvin was suspected of disturbing up to 150 graves. This suspicion arose after police discovered various grave ornaments, including metal nameplates removed from headstones. Additionally, investigators found manuals for crafting the dolls, cemetery maps, and a collection of images and videos showing open graves and exhumed bodies. However, none of this evidence could be definitively linked to the bodies discovered in the apartment. According to the inquiry, the bodies primarily originated from cemeteries in the Nizhny Novgorod region, though some may have come from as far as Moscow. In an article he wrote shortly before his arrest, he linked his fascination with the deceased to a childhood incident, where he witnessed a funeral procession for an 11-year-old girl. He claimed that he was coerced by the participants to kiss the lifeless face of the girl, stating that he had no choice but to comply. One tragic case among Moskvin's eerie collection was that of Olga Shardimova, a 10-year-old girl whose life was cut short on her very first solo trip to her grandmother's house. Despite her parents' initial reservations, she insisted, "I'm 10 already, I can go by myself." Equipped with her cherished green bag and blue umbrella, Olga set off for her grandmother's house, which was merely a block away, just after her parents had departed for work. However, her journey was cut short within the confines of her own building, when a drug addict accosted Olga in the lobby, compelling her to return to the top floor, where he ruthlessly robbed her of her earrings. In a horrifying turn of events, the assailant struck the young girl on the head with a metal bar, claiming her life in an attempt to escape. Tragically, Olga's remains remained undiscovered for 5 long months, ultimately being found wedged behind pipes in the attic of the building. On October 2, 2002, Olga was laid to rest in a cemetery in Nizhny Novgorod, and her devoted parents, Natalia and Igor, erected a protective metal fence around her grave, initiating the process of adorning it on May 7, 2003. On the following day, when they returned to continue their tribute, they were startled to find a relocated wreath and a palpable sense that someone had been present. Subsequently, they began to find notes addressed to their daughter, affectionately referred to as "Little Lady," congratulating her on special occasions, as if she were still among the living. According to Olga's parents, these anonymous missives arrived on every holiday, even on the first and last days of school, carrying sentiments like, "Happy last month of your 6th year at school." Each unsettling letter was signed D.A., signifying Dorby Angel, meaning kind angel. These notes were personally delivered by Moskvin, who frequented the graves of the girls whose remains he kept in his possession. With the advent of each new year, Olga's parents would discover her resting place adorned with decorations, often accompanied by pilfered stuffed animals and soft toys from neighboring graves. In June of 2003, Natalia and Igor managed to procure a proper headstone for their daughter's final resting place, only to have it defiled with menacing messages by Moskvin, including a chilling ultimatum: "If you don't erect the grand monument she deserves, we will unearth her body," and ultimately Moskvin vandalized the headstone with an axe. The tribulations persisted, with notes and toys persistently left at Olga's grave, and the metal cross on the site often found bent. After receiving similar complaints about other young girls' graves in Nizhny Novgorod, the police made the decision to open Olga's grave on October 5, 2012, nearly a decade after her burial. To their horror, Olga's parents and the police found a breach in her coffin, through which the girl's remains had been extracted. Investigators later pieced together through Moskvin's notes that Olga's body had indeed been taken in May 2003, precisely when her parents first suspected an unwelcome visitor at her final resting place. During his trial, Moskvin acrimoniously addressed the parents of the mummified girls he kept in his residence, asserting, "You abandoned your girls in the cold, and I brought them home and warmed them up." Moskvin fully cooperated with the investigation, and asserted that he had fashioned the dolls over a span of 10 years. His parents, who were frequently away, were unaware of his activities. Moskvin was charged under Article 244 of the Criminal Code for the desecration of graves and human remains, a crime carrying a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison. Following a psychiatric evaluation, it was determined that Moskvin suffered from a form of paranoid schizophrenia. In a hearing on May 25, 2012, the Leninsky District Court of Nizhny Novgorod deemed Moskvin unfit to stand trial, absolving him of criminal responsibility. Instead, he was ordered to undergo coercive medical measures. The prosecution accepted this decision and did not contest the verdict. Moskvin was transferred to a psychiatric facility, with the duration of his treatment subject to regular review. In February 2013, a hearing granted an extension of his treatment, which was once again prolonged in April 2014, and subsequently in July 2015. In 2014, a spokesperson stated, "After 3 years of monitoring him in a psychiatric clinic, it is absolutely clear that Moskvin is not mentally fit for trial. He will therefore be kept for psychiatric treatment at the clinic." In September 2018, Moskvin's medical team affirmed that he was no longer a threat, and petitioned the court for his release for outpatient care from his home. However, in February 2019, a subsequent psychiatric evaluation concluded that it was premature to release Moskvin, leading the hospital to withdraw their petition. In an interview, Moskvin revealed a deep empathy for deceased children, expressing a belief that they could potentially be revived through either scientific means, or through the practice of dark magic. Drawing on his expertise in Celtic culture, Moskvin learned about the ancient Druids' custom of sleeping on graves to commune with the spirits of the departed. He also delved into the traditions of Siberian people, particularly the ancient Yakuts, who had a similar method of communicating with the deceased. Moskvin began scouring the obituaries of recently departed children, seeking ones that resonated with him. He would then spend nights on the child's grave, aiming to discern if the spirit desired to return to life. He asserted he had been engaging in this for roughly 2 decades, maintaining that in the early days, he never disturbed the grave without the consent of the child within. As time passed, the physical strain of sleeping on graves became too much, leading him to bring the bodies to his home, where he could rest near them in greater comfort. He hoped that in a secure and inviting environment, the spirits would be more inclined to communicate, believing they might be more audible when no longer beneath the ground. While Moskvin's story is one of darkness, it also serves as a chilling reminder of the depths one can descend when consumed by an insatiable curiosity. Stay curious, but remember to tread carefully on the fringes of obsession.